He won't say it out loud, but every man secretly longs for this one thing from an older woman, and if you don't understand it, you'll miss the very reason he stays hooked or why he slowly pulls away. It's not what you think. It's not about looks or money or even the physical side. It's about the one gift only a confident, grounded woman can give him, something younger women rarely bring. See, men may act like they have it all together, but deep down they crave a space where they don't have to perform every second. An older woman's confidence, her calm presence, that quiet "I know who I am" energy, it's magnetic. It tells him, you don't have to prove yourself here, you're safe, you're wanted, you're free to be real. And do you know what happens when a man feels that? He opens up, he invests. He chases you, not because you demand it, but because you've given him the rarest thing of all, acceptance without judgment. And if you want to know exactly how to use this to build a connection he never forgets, stay with me. Because I'm about to show you the qualities that make him not just desire you, but respect and cherish you in a way he won't with anyone else. There's something that many men feel deep down, but almost none of them say out loud. They don't tell their friends, they don't share it with their partner, and sometimes they don't even admit it to themselves. It isn't about attraction in the way movies usually show it. It's something softer, deeper, and at the same time, a little unsettling. Have you ever met someone who made you feel safe enough to breathe? Not safe like protection from danger, but safe in an emotional and mental way, like your whole nervous system finally let go and you could exhale without fear. That's the feeling many men quietly experience when they connect with an older woman. And no, it isn't only about experience the way pop culture jokes make it seem. It's about an emotional shelter, a calm place he never even knew he was searching for. So let's slowly pull this apart, but before we begin, I want you to pause and ask yourself one thing. When was the last time you felt truly understood? Not just heard, not just listened to politely. I mean really and deeply understood by someone. Hold that memory in your chest as we move forward, because what we're about to explore might not only change the way you look at connection, but it may also shift the way you see yourself. The first piece of this is simple but powerful. It's about presence, and not the buzzword type of presence people throw around. I mean the calm, grounded presence of someone who isn't trying to show off or prove anything. For many men, the first thing they feel when they meet an older woman is this sense of being seen, really seen. No games, no masks, no interruptions, just stillness and attention. In a world where men are constantly pushed to do more, fix more, explain more, and succeed more, the energy an older woman brings feels different. It's like she gives him the space to simply exist without judgment. And that's rare. It's not easy to meet someone who isn't waiting for their turn to speak, who isn't scanning you for mistakes or silently measuring you against some invisible list of expectations. Older women, having already lived through decades of noise, drama, and expectations, often tune into something else entirely: quiet stillness. They don't rush to fill every silence. And for a man who has spent most of his life feeling like he has to talk, fix, and perform in every empty moment, this is shocking in the best way. He may not even realize how much he was craving it until it happens. But this is where things start to dig even deeper, because the next truth many men discover, often in silence, is this: he can actually be human here. Think about that. He doesn't need to impress. He doesn't need to always be funny, wealthy, ambitious, strong, stylish, or completely put together. He can show up tired, confused, sensitive, flawed, and he is still accepted. Older women, in many cases, have lived enough life to know that vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is human, it's texture. They've experienced their own heartbreaks, their own losses, their own identity struggles, their moments of being completely alone. So when a man shows up carrying his own cracks and imperfections, they don't pull back. They don't instantly label him as a problem. Instead, they nod with quiet understanding. They get it. And without needing to give a long speech, they offer him something rare: emotional permission. The permission to not have all the answers, to not fix everything, and to just feel. And here's where the emotional weight really hits. For a man who has been taught that his value comes from how useful, capable, or strong he is, this kind of gentle acceptance creates confusion at first. It's like stepping out into the rain after spending years running from it, only to realize the water actually feels good. It's surprising, it's confusing, but above all, it's healing. And in that moment, he finally breathes out, sometimes for the first time in years. For so long, many men believe emotional safety is earned by proving themselves, by showing strength, by being reliable, by achieving. But maybe that belief isn't true. Maybe real safety comes not from what you prove, but from being accepted without needing to prove anything at all. And maybe that's what men have been chasing all along, even if they didn't have the words for it. And that's just the surface, because the next layer runs even deeper. Imagine sitting in a conversation where for once you're not performing, you're not searching for the right words, you're not trying to entertain or impress, you're just talking, and she's right there with you, fully present, her eyes steady, her mind engaged, her attention not drifting away or waiting to speak about herself. She's not trying to compete with you, not trying to outshine your story, not even trying to fix you. She's simply listening fully. And that's when it dawns on you, she doesn't want to correct you. She wants to understand you. This leads to another quiet desire many men don't say out loud: the craving for intellectual closeness. Not a debate, not a battle over who's right, but the joy of depth, mutual curiosity, real conversation. Older women often carry this ability because they've lived through real transitions, careers, losses, reinventions, grief, rediscovery. So when they talk, they don't just offer opinions, they offer perspective. And for a man who's used to surface level conversations, suddenly he's swimming in deeper water. And he realizes something unexpected. He doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay there, exploring thoughts, ideas, emotions, and meaning. Not because it's a contest, but because it stretches him, expands him. And it's not really about IQ, it's about depth. In a world where everything feels fast, shallow, and disposable, depth feels magnetic. But this depth reveals something else too. It frees him from performance. And that is one of the biggest silent hopes of all. Most men, without even realizing it, walk around like they're standing on a stage, always performing, always asking themselves, did I say the right thing? Am I successful enough? Am I doing enough to impress? It's tiring, especially in dating where every interaction feels like some kind of audition for a role no one even explained. But when he's with a woman who doesn't need him to play that role, everything changes. She doesn't need him to be the man in some cliche sense. She doesn't need him to rescue her, entertain her, or prove his worth by money or status. She's already complete. Her interest in him isn't about what he does, it's about who he is. That shift is life-changing. Suddenly, he doesn't have to edit himself. He doesn't have to carefully calculate every word. He can just show up, completely, openly, fully himself. And the strange twist? That's often when he becomes the most attractive, when he's no longer trying to be attractive at all. And then there's one last piece of this that men quietly long for but rarely admit out loud. Straightforward communication. It almost feels laughable how powerful it is when they finally experience it. No endless guessing, no hidden emotional puzzles, no 3 days of silence as punishment for a mistake he didn't know he made. Older women, especially those who've lived and learned, understand that life is too short for that. They've grown past the need for mind games. They've learned to speak openly, to say what they feel, and to ask for what they want. For a man who has spent years confused by mixed signals, this kind of directness feels like stepping into sunlight after living in a fog. And it's not just about clarity, it's about emotional maturity. Older women don't usually twist emotions into weapons. They don't explode over triggers they haven't worked on. They pause, they think, they respond instead of instantly reacting. They know the difference between a temporary problem and someone's identity. And this makes conflict something that can actually be solved. Not endless, not hidden under layers of unspoken resentment, but solvable. All of these things, the depth of conversation, the freedom from pretending, the emotional clarity, create a special kind of space. A space where a man no longer feels like he has to prove his value with every single breath. Instead, he feels invited to grow, to expand, to become. And really, what could be more attractive than that? But then the question comes up, if this is so powerful, why is it still so rare? The truth is, most men don't even realize how deep this hunger runs inside them until it finally gets met. And when it does, something shifts quietly within them. They stop constantly striving to perform, and instead begin showing up as themselves. Not because they've quit trying, but because they've been given something almost no one offers them: space to breathe. That's where the sixth quality steps in: real confidence. Not the show-off kind, not the filtered pictures on social media, not playful games, but the steady, grounded confidence of a woman who knows herself. A woman who has gone through enough storms to no longer apologize for her own sky, her own seasons, her own truth. And here's the important part: that kind of confidence doesn't cling. It doesn't constantly need to be reassured. It doesn't nervously ask, "Do you still like me?" after every emotional moment. Instead, it rests quietly in self-acknowledged. For men who are used to being the emotional caretaker in relationships, always smoothing things out, managing doubts, calming mini crises, this kind of presence is like gravity: stable, reliable, unshakable. She doesn't need him to complete her, she chooses him to complement her. And that changes everything, because now their bond isn't built on neediness or dependence, it's built on recognition and choice. But confidence like this doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's earned over time. It's built from real-life failures and recoveries, heartbreak and healing, moments of being lost and times of finding herself again, which naturally leads to the seventh quality men silently crave: perspective. And notice, this is not just opinion, it's true perspective. The wider view of life that only comes from actually living it. When a man is struggling with a new risk at work, or hurting from a breakup, or going through an identity crisis, an older woman can look at him calmly and without panic. Maybe she even says something as simple as, "I've been there. You'll get through this. Let's figure it out." That moment is not just support, it's grounding. It's like someone anchoring him when he was drifting in his own doubt. Sometimes one calm sentence like that becomes the lifeline he didn't even know he needed. And from there comes the eighth quality: interdependence without codependence. Many men have been in relationships where love meant losing themselves, where boundaries vanished, and their time, their energy, even their identity became swallowed by someone else's expectations. But with an older woman who has learnt to hold on to her own life, her friendships, her passions, a new picture forms, a relationship where two whole people stand on their own, and then choose, consciously, to weave their lives together. She doesn't fall apart if he needs space. She doesn't collapse if he's working late or traveling for days. She's steady, she's independent, she's rooted. But the beauty is, she still shows up as a partner. She still listens, she still gives, she still shares her life. The difference is, she doesn't need to erase herself to be loved. And that difference changes everything. Now comes a topic most men are too afraid to say out loud, but almost all of them feel: the absence of comfort and honesty in intimacy. Not just the act, not just appearances, but a deeper sense of safety, a relaxed, real kind of openness. Many older women by this stage in life are done with shame. They're done with pretending. They're done with hiding their wants just to avoid judgment. They know what they like, they aren't afraid to ask, and they don't waste time comparing anyone to some fake fantasy image. For men, especially those who've always felt pressure to perform or be flawless in that area, this is life-changing. It shifts intimacy from something they feel they have to do into something they actually get to experience. It becomes shared, mutual, creative, joyful, without fear hanging in the background. But here's the truth most people miss. It isn't about age itself. It's about the inner growth that age can sometimes bring. Because not every older woman has these qualities, just like not every younger woman lacks them. The real difference isn't the number of birthdays, it's the depth of self-work, the quality of presence she brings. That raises a bigger question. Are we chasing people based on their age, or are we seeking the quality of who they are right now, their real presence, their real depth, their real ability to show up? There comes a moment in every man's life, sometimes quietly, sometimes like a storm, when he realizes that peace is far more attractive than perfection. That calm feels more magnetic than chaos. That stability's not just nice, it's necessary. That's the 10th quality men often yearn for but rarely put into words. The presence of someone who can hold space without falling apart. Older women who've been through real turbulence often carry this calm almost naturally. They know how to feel strongly without being swallowed by emotions. They know how to argue without destroying. They know how to disagree without threatening the relationship's survival. For a man who's lived through relationships ruled by silent treatments, guilt trips, or sudden explosions, this steadiness feels magnetic, because at last, he doesn't need to prepare for emotional surprises every time something feels off. He can relax. He can speak freely. He can step into conflict knowing it will lead to clarity, not collapse. But emotional safety, as healing as it is, isn't the only piece. Because deep down, many men still wrestle with a quiet fear. Am I enough just the way I am? That's where the 11th quality comes in. True acceptance, without conditions. Not the kind that says, I'll accept you if you change this, if you improve that. But the kind that says, I accept you now, with your flaws, with your edges, with your imperfections. Older women who've outgrown the fantasy of fixing or reshaping their partner often bring this kind of love. They don't try to smooth out every rough edge. They don't keep a hidden checklist of upgrades you have to make. They simply say, I see you, and I'm here. For a man who has been conditioned to believe he must constantly earn his place, this feels almost unbelievable at first. But once he learns to trust it, he softens, not into laziness, but into his real self. He stops performing and starts living authentically. And that's when true closeness begins. Still, even with all of this, connection alone doesn't guarantee a future. That's where the 12th quality becomes essential: shared values and vision. Because at a certain stage, love is not just about feelings. It's about fit. It's about whether two lives can actually move in the same direction. Older women often have more clarity on this. They usually know what they want. They're not stuck wondering if they want children or not. They've already discovered what real quality time means to them. They've sorted out their priorities, whether financial, lifestyle, spiritual, or personal. They know their goals. And that kind of clarity changes the game, because it means you're not dating a maybe. You're not investing in someone's potential. You're meeting someone in their truth, in their now. And for a man who's tired of wasting time on some days and maybes, this is priceless. And that brings us to something that quietly ties it all together. The 13th quality men secretly long for, but rarely say out loud: emotional generosity. Not the kind that comes with conditions or hidden debts, but the open-hearted willingness to give care, time, patience, and affection without constantly keeping score. Many men have been in relationships where love was treated like a transaction. You do this, then I'll do that. But when he experiences someone who loves in a way that feels abundant, who doesn't measure every action, who simply shares because that's who she is, it softens him in ways he didn't expect. Older women often learn over time that real love isn't about tallying points. It's not about winning arguments or proving who gives more. It's about creating a cycle of giving and receiving that feels natural and steady. For a man who's used to always being the one to provide, protect, or prove, this balance feels like rest. He finally feels like he can lean without fear of collapse. And that feeling, being able to lean without losing himself, is something most men crave but rarely experience. The 14th quality is just as important, though often hidden under everything else. Joy. Not just fun, not just distraction, but the deep kind of joy that comes from someone who still laughs easily, who still notices small beauties, who hasn't let the weight of life harden them completely. Older women who have gone through both pain and healing often know that laughter is medicine. They don't need everything to be perfect before they allow themselves to feel joy. And when she brings that lightness into his life, it reminds him that love doesn't always have to feel heavy or serious to be real. For men, especially those carrying the burden of responsibility day after day, this playfulness is magnetic. It gives him permission to put down the armor, to laugh, to play, to remember that he is not only a provider or a protector, but also a human being, allowed to feel light. And when joy and depth live side by side, that's when connection becomes unforgettable. But here's the 15th and maybe the hardest quality to describe: truth. Honesty without cruelty. Directness without sharp edges. Many men have lived through relationships where honesty was either avoided or delivered like a weapon. Both leave scars. But when an older woman has reached a point where she values truth over image, when she can say the real thing with kindness, when she can be transparent without tearing someone down, that's a gift beyond measure. Because men, like anyone, don't want to live in constant guessing. They don't want to wonder what's really going on behind the silence. They want the peace of knowing that what's said is real. And when that honesty comes from a place of care rather than control, it builds the kind of trust that can't be faked. And trust, more than anything else, is what makes a man stay. So when you put all of this together, the perspective, the confidence, the acceptance, the clarity, the honesty, you begin to see why so many men feel drawn to older women, even if they can't put it into words. It's not about age. It's not about stereotypes. It's about qualities that grow from real life, from growth, from depth. And when a man finally feels that kind of connection, he realizes it's not about chasing perfection or youth or appearances. It's about finding peace, safety, honesty, and joy in someone who meets him as he is. And maybe that's the quiet truth most men never say out loud. They're not really searching for someone flawless. They're searching for someone real, someone steady, someone who gives them space to breathe, someone who sees them not for what they can perform, but for who they are when the performance is finally dropped. And this leads us to the 16th quality men rarely put into words but often feel deeply: loyalty. Not just the kind that says, "I'll stay if everything is easy," but the kind that stays steady even when life gets hard. Many men have experienced relationships where affection disappears the moment struggles appear, where support is conditional, where love feels like a test they can fail at any time. But when they encounter someone who stands firm, who remains grounded when life shakes, it changes everything. Older women who have faced storms in their own lives often understand that commitment is not about perfection, it's about choosing again and again, even on difficult days. And when a man feels that kind of loyalty, it doesn't just comfort him, it gives him courage. Courage to take risks, to show his flaws, to be his full self, because he knows he won't be abandoned the second things get messy. That kind of safety is priceless. The 17th quality builds on this, and it's just as powerful: self-awarenessness. Many men have been in relationships where every conflict turns into blame, where accountability is one-sided, where apologies never come. But older women who have done their own inner work bring a different energy. They can say, "I was wrong," without fear. They can admit when they've made mistakes. They don't need to always be right to feel valuable. And this humility mixed with strength creates a rare kind of balance. For men, this is deeply healing. It means they don't have to carry every burden alone. It means they don't have to be the only one reflecting, fixing, adjusting. It means the relationship is a partnership, not a performance where one person plays the hero and the other plays the critic. Self-awareness creates growth, and growth creates trust. The 18th quality ties into something more subtle but equally magnetic: patience. In a world where everything feels rushed, where love is treated like a race, patience becomes rare. But many older women know that true connection takes time. They're not rushing to check boxes. They're not panicking if things don't happen overnight. They understand that love is not a sprint, it's a steady walk. And for men, this patience feels like relief. Finally, they can slow down. Finally, they can build something real without the pressure of constant urgency. And then comes the 19th quality: respect. Not just politeness, but real respect. The kind that values his voice, his choices, his individuality. Many men, even successful ones, carry a quiet ache from feeling dismissed or belittled in past relationships. But when a woman respects not just what he does, but who he is, it restores something inside him. It tells him he matters, not just as a provider or protector, but as a whole person. And when respect flows both ways, love becomes stronger than attraction alone. It becomes partnership. All of this leads to the 20th quality, the one that ties all the rest together: peace. At the end of the day, men don't stay where they feel constantly judged, tested, or drained. They stay where they feel calm, where they feel accepted, where they feel like home. And peace, more than beauty, more than excitement, more than any performance, is what makes love last. Because the truth is, men may not always talk about it. They may not always know how to ask for it. But deep down, they long for the same things everyone does: to be seen, to be understood, to be accepted, and to build something steady. And when they find it, they don't just love the woman in front of them. They also become a better version of themselves in the process.